The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Not the silence of contemplation, but the silence of absolute certainty. The decision had already been made. Earth would fall. Grand Strategist Zeltor, a towering figure draped in the ceremonial robes of war, stood before the assembly of alien delegates. His voice was calm, laced with arrogance. "The humans are defiant," he stated. "They have refused integration into our great empire. This will not stand." The council members murmured in agreement. Earth was a young civilization, barely a few centuries into spaceflight. Their fleets were primitive, their technology outdated, and their military laughably small compared to the vast armadas of the council. "We will move swiftly," Zeltor continued. "A single battle fleet will be enough to break their world. Their defenses will crumble within days." There was no opposition, no debate. The vote was unanimous. War was declared. A message to Earth. The Council's ultimatum was broadcast across human space. "You have refused the benevolence of the Galactic Council. This is your final warning. Surrender your world, disarm your fleets, and submit to our rule, or be eradicated." Silence followed. No immediate response. The counselors chuckled. Maybe the humans had already realized their mistake. Maybe they were too afraid to reply. Then the reply came. A single transmission, short and direct. "Come and take it." The laughter in the chamber stopped. Zeltor narrowed his reptilian eyes. "The invasion begins." A week later, the Council's first fleet entered the Sol system. Hundreds of warships, each armed with weapons capable of shattering continents, advanced toward Earth. The fleet commander, Admiral Varek, was certain of victory. His confidence wavered when he saw what awaited them. Earth's forces weren't cowering behind their planet. They weren't scrambling in disarray. Instead, they were waiting, calm, prepared, and completely unafraid. Strange. Varek's sensors picked up something even stranger. The humans weren't firing first. Instead, they let the Council fleet advance, closer, until the trap was sprung. What happens next? The Council thought Earth was weak. They thought humans would kneel. They were wrong. What secret weapons have the humans been hiding? Why did they let the Council's fleet get so close? And most importantly, who will survive the first battle? Admiral Varek had seen countless battles. He had crushed insurrections, obliterated pirate fleets, and led campaigns that reshaped entire star systems. But as he stared at the tactical display, something was wrong, terribly wrong. The human fleet should have been in full retreat. Instead, they waited, silent and unmoving. It wasn't fear. It wasn't hesitation. It was confidence. Varek's instinct screamed at him. This wasn't how a weak species behaved. And then the trap snapped shut. The fleet that shouldn't exist. The first warning came from the outermost cruisers. Multiple warp signatures detected. They're behind us. Varek's eyes widened. That was impossible. The Council fleet had taken every precaution. Long-range scans showed nothing but open space. Yet now, human warships were emerging from the void, cutting off their escape. Hundreds of them. Impossible. The humans weren't supposed to have this many ships. Their military records were clear. They had barely a dozen battle-ready capital ships. But here they were, an entire armada, appearing as if from nowhere. How did they? Varek stopped himself. It didn't matter how. What mattered was surviving. The first shot. A single human vessel moved forward, broadcasting on all frequencies. The voice was calm, almost mocking. "Welcome to Sol. Please enjoy your stay." Then they opened fire. The first wave of projectiles slammed into the lead Council battleships. But these weren't ordinary munitions. The instant they hit, they burrowed through shields like they didn't even exist. The hulls of the massive Council warships buckled, twisted, then detonated in brilliant explosions. Shields are failing. They're bypassing our defenses. Panic spread through the fleet. Varek clenched his jaw. No, this couldn't be happening. The Council was the dominant force of the galaxy, not humans, not some backwater species that had only just left their homeworld. And yet, ship after ship vanished in fire. The horror of human tactics. The Council's standard doctrine was overwhelming force, massive, powerful warships designed for direct engagements. But humans? Humans fought differently. They didn't meet the Council head-on. They struck from the shadows, using stealth technology that was far beyond what should have been possible. They jammed communications. Council ships couldn't coordinate, couldn't regroup. They used weapons designed for maximum psychological terror, massive kinetic rods, fired at near-relativistic speeds, turning entire cruisers into shrapnel before their crews even knew they were under attack. The Council fleet was being dismantled. A desperate counterattack. Varric refused to accept defeat. He had to turn the tide. All ships fall back to Formation Beta 4. Redirect power to kinetic shielding. Focus fire on their lead vessels. The remaining Council warships repositioned, unleashing a furious barrage. Plasma beams, hyper-accelerated rail rounds, antimatter warheads, every weapon in their arsenal. And yet, the humans endured. Their ships moved like nothing Varric had ever seen. Evasive, unpredictable, ruthless. Then, a new alert blared. "Sir, we have a direct hail from Earth's flagship." Varric turned to the screen. The figure that appeared made his blood run cold. It was a human admiral, and she was smiling. The last words before annihilation. "You should have left us alone." The transmission cut. Then, from the darkness of space, a new weapon was unleashed, and the Council fleet began to die. What happens next? The Galactic Council thought they were invincible. Now, they were learning the truth. What secret weapons did the humans just deploy? Why were their ships so advanced? And how did Earth prepare for this war without anyone noticing? Admiral Varric had never known fear. Not truly. Not in the way he was experiencing it now. The Galactic Council's fleet was the strongest armada ever assembled. And yet they were losing. Not just losing, being dismantled. His hands tightened into fists as the tactical display flickered in front of him. The fleet he had commanded for decades, the ships that had once brought entire civilizations to their knees, were vanishing in fire and ruin. This wasn't just a battle. This was slaughter. And the humans? They were enjoying it. The ghost ships. Varric's voice was like steel. "Tactical report." Now, a trembling officer responded. "Sir, His voice cracked, and he swallowed hard. "We're down to less than 40% of our fleet. Communications are scrambled. Our forward lines are in complete disarray." Varric's eyes narrowed. Where's the enemy? That was the problem. No one could see them. The human ships weren't behaving like a standard fleet. They moved like phantoms, striking from impossible angles, disappearing before anyone could return fire. A holomap flickered. Red icons, Council ships, blinking out one by one. And the human warships? Nowhere to be seen. They must be using some kind of advanced cloaking. His second-in-command muttered. "Our sensors can't lock onto them." Varric gritted his teeth. This wasn't how wars were fought. Not with deception, not with trickery. The Galactic Council's way was simple. Overwhelm the enemy with sheer firepower. But humans? Humans played a different game entirely. An enemy that refused to break. On the bridge of Earth's flagship, Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the battle unfold. And she was unimpressed. This was supposed to be the Council's grand fleet? This was what they sent to crush Earth. She let out a slow breath, shaking her head. They had no idea what they had walked into. "Status?" she asked. A nearby officer smirked. "Their formations are breaking. Some ships are trying to flee." Vasquez leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "Don't let them." At her command, a new wave of human warships decloaked directly inside the Council's ranks. Massive dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons that should not have existed, unleashed hell. Kinetic rods, moving at nearly the speed of light, ripped through Council ships like they were made of paper. Advanced railguns tore apart armor that had once been considered impenetrable. The Council had entered this battle thinking they were gods. Now they realized they were the prey. Desperation and defeat. Varric knew they had only one option left. Prepare the dreadnoughts for planetary bombardment, he barked. If we can't defeat their fleet, we'll burn their homeworld to ashes. The order sent a ripple of shock through his officers, but no one dared question it. Earth had to be destroyed, no matter the cost. Massive warships began repositioning, their main cannons locking onto the blue-green planet below. But just as the first warhead was about to be launched, something moved. A new fleet emerged, bigger than anything the Council had faced so far. Titan-class battleships, planetary defense platforms, orbital cannons, all fully operational. Earth wasn't defenseless. Earth had been waiting. The last stand of the Council. Sir, an officer whispered, pale as death. There's no way out. Varek's mind raced. This wasn't possible. Earth was supposed to be primitive, weak. The Council had ruled the stars for thousands of years. And yet, their greatest fleet was being crushed under humanity's heel. More explosions erupted across the battlefield. The last of the Council's flagships was torn apart by a direct kinetic strike. One by one, the Council's remaining ships began surrendering. Varek felt his body go cold. He had lost. No, they had lost. The great Galactic Council, the rulers of the galaxy, had been defeated by a species that was never meant to stand against them. The message to the galaxy. Admiral Vasquez stood at the command deck of Earth's flagship, watching the enemy fleet fall apart. She gave the order. Open a channel. Across every surviving Council vessel, a single message played. This is Admiral Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet is broken. Your war is over. We are not the weaklings you thought we were. And if you ever come back, we will erase you. The message was broadcast not just to the Council ships, but to every major species across the galaxy. For the first time in history, Earth had spoken, and the galaxy listened. What comes next? The Council has been humiliated. Their greatest fleet lies in ruins. But will they accept their defeat? Or is this just the beginning of something far, far worse? And most importantly, how did humanity become this powerful in secret? This can't be happening. Chancellor Orvos stood frozen in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, his four eyes locked on the massive holoscreen displaying the impossible. The Council's fleet gone. Their greatest warships reduced to burning debris. Their finest admirals either dead or surrendering. And the humans? Untouched. Around him, the gathered representatives of the galaxy's ruling empires spoke in hushed, panicked whispers. The chamber, once a place of power and control, now felt like a graveyard. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had never lost a war. Now, their greatest fleet had been annihilated in a single battle. By humans. A galaxy in denial. Ambassador Skor of the Draukar slammed a fist onto the table, his reptilian features twisted in rage. This is a trick, a deception. There is no way a primitive species could do this. The murmurs grew louder. They wanted to believe him. They needed to believe him. But the evidence was undeniable. Orvos finally spoke, his voice strained. Our fleet was led by Admiral Varek, the greatest military mind we have ever known. And yet, he was outmaneuvered, outgunned, outmatched. A silence settled over the room. The truth was bitter, but it could no longer be ignored. The humans had defeated them without mercy. The question was, what would they do next? A new power rises. Across the chamber, an alert flashed, a direct message from the Terran Defense Fleet. Orvos hesitated, then opened the transmission. The image of Admiral Elena Vasquez filled the air. Her expression was unreadable, but there was no mistaking the power behind her gaze. Chancellor Orvos. Members of the Council, she said, her voice calm, too calm. You started this war. We ended it. She leaned forward slightly. The Council thought humanity was weak. You assumed we were just another species to be conquered, another world to bring under your rule. A pause. A slow, deliberate breath. You were wrong. Terms of surrender. Murmurs filled the chamber, but Vasquez continued, unmoved. The war is over. But make no mistake, we are not your servants. We are your equals. The word struck like a thunderclap. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council was being given orders. You will acknowledge Earth's sovereignty. You will cease all hostile actions against humanity. And you will pay reparations for the destruction you caused. Orvo's hands clenched. Reparations? The Council had never paid reparations to anyone. Skor snarled. You think you can dictate terms to us? We are the rulers of this galaxy. Vasquez smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You were. She gestured off-screen, and a new image appeared. Earth's war fleets, now mobilizing. Not just a few ships. Hundreds. Thousands. More than anyone had believed possible. And worse, they were already moving. A warning to the Council. The Terran Defense Fleet is now the most powerful force in the galaxy, Vasquez stated. If you refuse our terms, if you even think about retaliation. A new image flickered into view. The remains of the Council's once invincible fleet, now floating lifeless in the void. We will do to your homeworlds what we did to your warships. Silence. Absolute silence. The Galactic Council had ruled with fear for centuries. Now, they were the ones trembling. Orvos felt a weight settle over him. The truth was clear. They had no choice. The Council would submit, or they would cease to exist. The new order. Slowly, Orvos turned to face the gathered representatives. We have no alternative, he said, his voice heavy with defeat. We must acknowledge the humans' demands. There were no protests, no defiance. They all understood. The Council had played its final hand and lost. Earth's final message. Vasquez leaned back. Smart choice. Her image flickered, but before the transmission ended, she left them with one final warning. The galaxy belongs to no one empire anymore. From this day forward, humanity will never bow to anyone. And with that, the screen went dark. The war was over, but the age of humanity had just begun. You should have killed them when you had the chance. The voice echoed through the silent chamber of the Galactic Council. It belonged to Supreme Strategist Tavash of the Krell Dominion, a species known for its cold pragmatism and ruthless efficiency. His dark eyes burned with contempt as he stared at Chancellor Orvos, who stood motionless at the center of the room. The air was thick with tension. The Council's military might had been shattered. Their war fleets had been turned into wreckage. And now, for the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council was no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. A handful of representatives murmured in agreement with Tavash. Others remained silent, their faces carved in stone. Orvos clenched his jaw, suppressing the surge of anger threatening to boil over. And what would you have me do, strategist? His voice was quieter than usual, but there was an edge to it. Launch a suicidal counterattack? Throw what remains of our fleets into the fire. Tavash sneered. I would rather die fighting than live under human rule. The words sent a ripple through the chamber. Human rule. A few cycles ago, such a phrase would have been laughable. Now it was reality. A fractured council. Ambassador Skor, still nursing his wounded pride, hissed. Earth's fleets are not yet on our doorsteps. We still have time. For what? Snapped Orvos. To gather forces we no longer have? To rally allies who now see us as weak and broken. His gaze swept over the assembly. Humanity does not need to conquer us. They have already won. Silence. No one wanted to admit it, but they all knew he was right. In the past, when a galactic war ended, the Council dictated the terms. The defeated were forced into servitude, their world stripped of resources, their people taxed into submission. But this time, the roles had reversed. Now they were the defeated, and they were the ones being given terms. The shadow of retribution. A new transmission alert flashed across the Council's main holoscreen. The assembly froze. They already knew who it was. The image of Admiral Vasquez reappeared. This time, there was no pretense of diplomacy. No measured words. Only a warning. You will abide by the terms of surrender, she said. There will be no further discussion. No last-minute negotiations. No secret alliances to undermine us. She leaned in slightly, her dark eyes like steel. If humanity catches even a whisper of betrayal, we will not just break your fleets. We will break your civilizations. The message was clear. Earth's patience had limits. A desperate gamble. When the transmission ended, murmurs erupted across the chamber once more. Some were outraged. Others were terrified. Tavash, however, only smiled. "You see," he said, his voice dripping with quiet amusement. "That is the voice of a conqueror. They will not stop until we are completely under their control." He turned to Orvos. "If we surrender now, we lose everything." Orvos exhaled sharply. "We have no fleet, no leverage, no options." "What do you suggest?" Tavash's smile widened. "We do what we have always done." The supreme strategist stepped forward, tapping into the Council's private data channels. A hidden map flickered to life before them, a web of secret military installations, rogue warlords, and dormant armadas scattered across the outer fringes of the galaxy. The humans think they have crushed us. But they forget, power is not only measured in ships and weapons. Orvos narrowed his eyes. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," Tavash whispered, "that there are forces in this galaxy even humans do not understand. Forces that existed long before their kind ever set foot among the stars." His gaze turned cold. "If Earth wishes to challenge us for dominance, let them face the full wrath of the old war machines buried in the dark." The forbidden plan. A hush fell over the chamber. They all knew what Tavash was suggesting. There were weapons, technologies, hidden in the far reaches of space that even the Council feared. Ancient fleets, dormant but waiting. Superweapons from the galaxy's forgotten wars. Things that could tip the balance. Orvos hesitated. Was this truly the only way? But then he thought of Earth's fleets, of Vasquez's voice, of the power behind every word she spoke. The humans had no intention of being ruled. But that did not mean they could not be destroyed. Orvos slowly nodded. "Gather the others. We must prepare." Tavash's grin was full of wicked satisfaction. A storm on the horizon. While the Galactic Council plotted in secret, Earth continued to consolidate its newfound power. Admiral Vasquez watched from the bridge of her flagship as the final Council-controlled systems swore allegiance to Earth, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. She knew better than to believe this war was truly over. History had proven that the defeated always sought revenge. She turned to her communications officer. "Monitor all Council movements. If they so much as breathe in the wrong direction, I want to know about it." The officer nodded. "Understood, Admiral." As Vasquez looked out into the void, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Council was not done. They would not accept defeat so easily. And when they made their move, humanity would be ready. "They think we fear them." Tavash's voice was steady, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. Before him stood the last remnants of the Galactic Council's military command, admirals, strategists, and warlords who had refused to bow to Earth's dominance. They had all gathered in secret, deep within the uncharted void of space, where ancient war machines lay dormant, waiting for a new master. The supreme strategist stepped forward, activating a holographic display. The room darkened as the image of an ancient fleet, a vast armada of long-lost warships, appeared before them. The ships were relics of a forgotten age, weapons from a time before the Council's rule. And they were still operational. "Humanity believes they have won," Tavash continued. "They think our fleets are broken, our will shattered." He turned, his gaze sweeping over the assembled leaders. "But we are not defeated. Not yet. This war is far from over." There were murmurs of agreement, cautious but growing. Then Orvos, still hesitant, spoke. "Even with these weapons, do we truly stand a chance? Earth has already proven its strength. We underestimated them once. We cannot afford to do so again." Tavash smiled. "We will not make the same mistake. This time, we will not fight them in open battle." He gestured at the hologram, zooming in on Earth's occupied territories. "We strike from the shadows. We make their victory cost more than they are willing to pay." Earth's unyielding watch. Meanwhile, aboard the UHS Warspite, Earth's most advanced dreadnought, Admiral Vasquez stood at the command deck, watching as intelligence reports flooded in. The Council had gone silent, too silent. She knew what that meant. They were planning something. Increase patrols around all occupied sectors, she ordered. Triple security in former Council strongholds. I want every ship movement tracked. Her officers nodded, moving swiftly to execute her commands. Then came the first attack. It wasn't a fleet engagement. It wasn't even a battle. It was a coordinated series of strikes, sabotage on occupied planets, assassinations of key human officers, cyber attacks on Earth's military networks. It was a war fought in the shadows, and it was spreading faster than Vasquez had anticipated. Reports flooded in. Supply chains disrupted, communications severed. Colony worlds plunged into chaos. For the first time, Earth's forces were forced onto the defensive. And that was only the beginning. The Ghost Fleet awakens. From the void of deep space, the ancient warships of the Forgotten Armada came to life. Their engines, long dormant, roared with newfound power. They did not attack in large numbers. They did not need to. Each of these relics was a superweapon, wielding destructive capabilities far beyond anything the modern galaxy had seen. One by one, human-controlled outposts began to vanish. Entire stations reduced to lifeless husks. The message was clear. The Council would not go quietly. The breaking point. Back on Earth, the mood was shifting. What was once seen as a glorious victory was now beginning to feel like an unending war. Political leaders debated whether Earth should continue fighting or seek a truce. But Vasquez knew the truth. There could be no truce. Not anymore. The Council had made its choice. They had chosen revenge over survival. And now, humanity would answer. The final reckoning. Vasquez stood before the gathered leaders of Earth's military command, her expression as hard as steel. This war ends now, she declared. We will not be bled dry by 1,000 cuts. If the Council wants a war, we will give them one. A war they cannot escape. A map of the galaxy flickered to life behind her, highlighting key locations. We know where they are hiding, she continued. We know where they are striking from. And we have the power to end this. She turned to her officers. Prepare the fleets. The room fell into silence. Then came the answer. Yes, Admiral. The orders were given. The largest military campaign in human history was about to begin. This was no longer a war for survival. This was a war to end all wars. The last battle. In the cold depths of space, Earth's fleets surged forward, hunting down the remnants of the Council's forces. No more diplomacy. No more half measures. The final battle began with a devastating assault on the Council's hidden bastions. One by one, their strongholds fell. The ancient warships that had once terrorized the stars were obliterated, their overwhelming power meaningless against Earth's relentless advance. Tavash watched as his final fleet burned, his dreams of revenge crumbling before his eyes. This cannot be, he whispered. But it was. Humanity had proven once and for all. They were not the ones who would fall. The end of an era. When the dust settled, the Galactic Council was no more. Earth now stood alone at the top. And as Vasquez looked out at the stars, she knew one thing for certain. No one would ever challenge humanity again.